Hello, I'm Andrew Tidwell,
And I'm Matthew Tidwell.
and this is Mind Map. All right, the first thing on the agenda is follow-up. We have two pieces of follow-up, it seems.
The first one is my follow-up, which is me and Nintendo mobile games. So you mentioned last time how you played a bunch of different Nintendo games. Like, we talked about Pokemon Go briefly, and you mentioned to me Fire Emblem Fates.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually gone back, and I recently downloaded Fire Emblem Fates.
And isn't it the best game
I played
ever?
a little bit of it before we started podcasting, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
It is
It's
such
pretty
a good
simple,
game.
it's pretty basic, but I'm enjoying that. I like the mechanics of it and how that all works, and I think it's a pretty solid game.
Yeah.
So
So what chapter are you on in the story?
I am on chapter 3 of the prologue.
Okay.
So I am in
Yeah.
I am in the very tutorial part.
So chapter they
I didn't get
continue they still continue the chapter. So like when you get out of the prologue, that's like chapter 4 or 5 or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
I'm
so-
in the prologue still though. So
Yeah.
I'm not very far. I played literally the half hour before you came to pick me
Oh.
up for the podcast.
Oh, okay.
So
So
I'm not very far at all. I understand the very, very basic mechanics and I understand kind of how that works, but besides that, I
mhm.
enjoy it. I enjoy
Yeah,
it a lot.
you're in the honeymoon period of the
I'm
game.
in the very honeymoon period of the game where it's pretty simple, pretty easy.
hmm
Nothing bad's gonna happen.
Just
But-
wait until you get to chapter 8 in the story, and then it starts to hit you like, okay, I'm nearing the end game, and things are really hard now.
That's what I imagine is that because the game is pretty simple when you start off in that.
Yeah.
Oh, I just move this guy to this square and it's pretty easy because I can kill him with one hit.
Mm-hmm.
But then
No,
it gets to
not
the
in
point
late
where
game.
you're like, yeah, I'm sure it'll get to the point where I'll just be like wrecked.
Well, your characters just don't end up being strong enough, and you only get characters by either playing those missions that give you characters.
Yeah.
There's a second set of story missions, or I think it's story missions. There's a second set of missions that give you characters when you beat them.
Yeah.
But they're really like they're level 2 characters. They're not very good. Like 2-star characters.
Yeah.
And they're not very good, but that's the only like organic way to get them. The only other way you can get them is by spending your orbs.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning, the game is really generous. It gives you tons of orbs.
I think I have like 200 orbs or something like that.
I doubt 200 orbs.
Well, no,
but
they gave out like a bunch. I don't know.
Oh,
what it
did
was.
they?
They had like an event.
Oh,
this-
dude,
like
I
this
need to log
weekend.
on then.
They also have it's 1/2 EXP.
Okay, I
As
did.
of-
I
this
saw
week.
that, and because I played it this weekend, but they didn't give me 200 orbs.
I don't know if it was just because it was my first time playing or
No,
something like that, but they gave me like 10,000 feathers and a bunch
Yeah.
of other stuff.
that was the one event I did do.
Yeah.
Wait until you get to that point, because that's a grind when you have to start getting feathers, because
Okay.
there are so few ways to get feathers.
Yeah.
But you've never played any Fire Emblem games,
I have
right?
not played any Fire Emblems. I've watched other people play them,
Mm-hmm.
but I have not actually played them myself. So I understand the basic mechanics of you have an overworld, and like I think the one I've watched people play is Fire Emblem Awakening,
Mm-hmm.
which was for the GameCube.
No, that was for the 3DS.
Okay, then I've only watched the one on the GameCube then.
I don't remember what that one's called.
I don't know what it's called either, but I remember our neighbor in Hawaii, they had that,
Okay.
and I'd always watch him play it every now and then.
Yeah. So the
So you have like an overworld, and
Mhm.
then from there you move them, like your characters or your party on a grid, and from that grid,
Yeah.
it introduces you to fights, and then those fights work in JRPG ways.
well, they're like rock paper scissors fights on a chessboard.
Yeah.
You have chessboards with unique pieces. It's
you
like
move these pieces around on the checkerboard basically,
Mhm.
and from there they can either attack long range or
yeah, they have certain
straight up,
skills
yeah.
that they can allow them to do certain actions. When a character gets to level 20, which takes a long time.
I could see that.
Like it takes a really long time. I just got my first set of characters to level 20. I've been using them the entire time. I got them the day I bought them using the orbs the day I got enough orbs to buy a bunch of packs,
Yeah.
like the first or second day. Got a bunch of great characters that day. Like they were 4 stars, that kind of stuff. And I have been using them ever since because I have been getting really awful characters whenever I open packs.
Oh yeah.
So, because I've been grinding with this one set of characters, I finally have them to level 20. But you need feathers to upgrade them any further. Like you can keep
Oh.
leveling them up, but in order to unlock their full potential, make them as powerful as they can possibly be, you have to spend 200 or 20,000 feathers.
For each level, or
No, it's a one-time upgrade.
okay.
What it does is it bumps their star up to the next level.
So it gives them
Yeah.
one
So
star
there's
up.
5. You can have a maximum of 5 stars on a character. All mine are 4, and that requires a bump of 20,000 feathers. or these special emblems that you can only get like 3 of every week.
Okay.
So the grind is real at the end game. When you're trying to get getting all your characters up to level 20, that's a grind.
Yeah.
But then when you have to when you want to unlock their full potential so you can start using them in the arena, which is how you unlock more feathers, you have to use feathers to do that. And the game doesn't give you enough feathers. The feather economy is awful. So that's my main gripe with the game, and you haven't seen that yet.
I haven't gotten nearly as far as you have, so I can't say.
Mm-hmm.
But
I also don't like that they use a card pack system. It's cool that they tell you what each pack, what your percentages are of getting each character in each pack, but those packs rotate every few weeks.
Yeah, I noticed that was a thing.
So
they have rotating packs.
The 2 packs that I had 2 weeks ago, last week, something like that had all the characters I really wanted, got swapped out with a pack that has no characters that I want.
And now you can't get those old ones.
I can't get any of those old ones. Yeah, and I couldn't get orbs fast enough. I'm not spending money on this game. It's a free game, and honestly, the pricing for everything, if you pay the minimum amount that it'll let you to buy orbs, you can't even buy 1 character.
Yeah.
What? What kind of decision is that?
That's been my only issue with a lot of these Nintendo games is I don't think Nintendo's figured out the pricing, the correct pricing for how they want to do these microtransactions, because as of right now, you can get 100 coins on Pokemon Go for $1, which is which is enough for I think 10 Pokeballs or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you can just go down the street and spin the thing.
That pricing isn't as bad.
Basically.
That pricing isn't as bad.
I think they figured it out with Pokemon Go a lot better, but there's other games like the Mario Run that I think they've still been trying to tweak a bit.
Yeah,
I think they'll get better with it once they've kind of broken the market a bit better, but
they need to be updating their games, though. They haven't been updating these prices. Fire Emblem is probably going to be a long-term investment for them.
I think
and
so.
Pokemon Go is fine and they don't really need to adjust those prices because you can earn all those things very easily and organically. If you just start walking, you'll get everything that you need. It'll take a while, but you can do it. Fire Emblem, you can't really do that. There's going to be an upper limit where you stop getting orbs, except by repeating missions or doing special events that they give you.
Yeah.
So when you get to that point, you're like, well, what do I do now? I have to spend money. The game is forcing me. There's no other way, which they're going to have to fix at some point. And when they fix that, they also will have to fix the economy for it because they're just not going to be making money. People will see the numbers and be like, yeah, these numbers aren't good. I'm not going to spend money on this. And
they aren't worth it.
Yeah. And then, we've made no money. Well, then we got to change the prices. Otherwise the game dies. Yeah.
See, the way that I look at Fire Emblem is how it's going to work is that I feel like this is going to be one of their only mobile Fire Emblem games. They're only going to do this one on the phones. Yeah. And then from there, they'll just keep updating this one. That's my thought in what they should do with this.
Well, I hope so. I hope that's what
they do. They only have the one Fire Emblem, and while they still make games on the 3DS or the Switch or whatever, and they still make those, that they just have the one constantly, iPhone one that they update.
Yeah, well, I hope that that's the case because it's a great.
And the same with Pokemon Go. Whereas something like Mario Run, I would like them to either make new apps with that or.
Yeah, if they made a Mario Run 2 or something like that, Super
Mario
Run.
I would be fine with that. Yeah.
Then.
But I wouldn't want a Pokemon Go 2 or a Fire Emblem 2.
Part of that problem is because of how much money you sink into the game. With Mario, it's a one-time $10 purchase.
Yeah.
With Fire Emblem or Pokemon Go, it's a living game. So as the game goes, you can potentially spend more and more money into the game, which means the game is worth more and more to you.
Yeah.
So if they just kill everything all that progress, all that money, with no way to move forward, people won't be happy about it. No. I mean, that's why, League of Legends, they haven't released a League of Legends 2. They just keep releasing new packs and new heroes for League of Legends to keep the game fresh.
And I think a lot of games should do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem Destiny is having right now. With Destiny, it's a living world where everything is kind of interconnected, the multiplayer, the single player, it's all interconnected, and everything you earn in that game is time investment. It's not monetary investment, but it's time investment. And so when if they were to release Destiny 2, well, are they going to get rid of everything? How are they going to
transfer that all over?
Yeah, is it all just going to go away?
New fan base?
Because all that investment's gone.
Yeah.
All that time investment is just completely gone. And people aren't happy. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if they just suddenly took away 100 hours of grinding that I had
if
to do.
they said
Not, and it's 100 hours not because I wanted it to be 100 hours.
because the game is designed that
Yeah,
way.
because it was 100 hours of me playing the game, trying to complete the objectives that the game set forth.
Yeah.
Like get to the max level or whatever it was. Moving on to the next piece of follow-up. In episode 3, a while back, we talked about Overwatch and their New Year's event.
Yeah, it was their Year of the Rooster, their new event
Mm-hmm.
that had happened.
Yeah.
I don't think
that
it's going
event's
on
over.
anymore.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure
event,
it's over.
That event is over.
So
But they did make an announcement when they ended it that they're going to be removing support for Windows XP and Windows Vista for all Blizzard games.
oh no.
Like, okay. So they made this
Not
announcement.
this, though.
How many people... The fact that they made this announcement means that they must have some appreciable amount of their fan base that still runs those operating systems.
They have enough of a fan base that
Why?
they need to.
Why are they still running these?
See, I would understand XP because a lot of like work computers and things like that. Like a lot of
Why
like
are you
older
playing
computers.
Blizzard games on your work computer?
I don't know, but a lot of
As
like
I punch
older
the mic.
yeah, a lot of like older computers they'll run XP. Like some people
Mhm.
prefer to use XP as an operating system because they don't like the Windows 7 and 10 updates.
But
because of the way that they work.
the
But
limitations of
yeah.
XP are so great
that's
now.
true. But Vista is what confuses me. Is
Yeah.
who's playing Overwatch on Vista?
Who wants to do anything on Vista? Who even wants to use the Vista computer at this point? Because Vista was garbage.
Yeah.
It was garbage.
Vista just does not work.
It was
But they have,
the
I guess
worst
they have enough
operating
of an
system.
audience. I guess they, of course, would have to make the notification that, hey, we're going to be cutting support for this because
Mm-hmm.
they just have to, because that's kind of a given when you're a game creator.
Yeah, I guess when you're as big as Blizzard, you have to. But
Yeah.
the fact that
But-
that leads me to believe that there is a big portion of their player base that maybe not big, but like there's a percentage
But a
point.
significant number that to the point. Well, how did they post this exactly? Was it like a
It was
proper like individual like message
was-
that we are removing?
it was
support
like a
for
new
this?
it was like a news update. It was on their
Okay,
if
so
I
it was
remember
a
right,
full-on
it was
update.
on their main page. It was like Blizzard is removing support for all Blizzard games for these operating systems, Windows XP and Windows Vista.
Okay, so they made an independent post stating all of this. then.
Yes.
Okay. See,
Which-
I feel like that they don't need to do that. They needed to add
Mhm.
that to like a secondary thing on top of an existing news.
Mhm.
Like, oh, we're putting out this new update with all this stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, we're also removing support for all this
Or
stuff.
just like because they must be able to see the people that are playing on Windows XP or Windows Vista.
They must be.
So there has to be a way for them to like send a message to just those users, like set a new hotfix into the game and be like, all right, we are no longer supporting, we see you're on Windows XP. We are no longer supporting this operating system. Please upgrade if you would like to keep playing our
Yeah.
games. Instead of like, I mean, yeah, it's easier if they just make a news post, but
It's easier to do that
it's
than
like-
update a game.
it's like how
do
many
that.
people are actually doing that? It blows my mind.
Yeah. The fact that people are still using XP and Vista nowadays, considering we're in Windows 10 right now.
Hmm. Well, let me look up when Windows XP came out.
So it's just crazy that these are still in use to the point. Like, see, it makes sense like in use for like work computers and stuff like that, but in like personal like gaming entertainment use.
So guess what year Windows XP came out in?
XP probably came out 2004,
2001.
2001.
It
okay.
is 16 years old almost.
Oh, man.
Almost. In August of this year, it'll be 16 years old.
Maybe we should throw it like a birthday party.
Windows, except nobody will be supporting
We'll
it.
throw it a sweet 16
Oh,
for Windows
no.
XP.
I'm sure somebody will do it. Somebody at Microsoft is planning it right now.
I'll do it. I'm not at Microsoft, but I'll do it.
You'll just go to Microsoft.
No, I'll just do it in my like room.
Nobody else will know.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the podcast
Just take
knows now.
Take a picture of it.
Take a selfie with Windows XP.
Just a box of Windows XP.
Me and the squad just holding the
Me and my fam.
yeah.
The
stuff like that.
Yeah, that was the only bit of follow up on that though.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to see what your opinion was on that because it blows my mind that people are
I mean,
still
I'm- yeah.
using Vista even
Yeah.
the-
I mean, when did Vista come out?
2007, I think.
Okay. That's-
It's more recent, but Vista was garbage.
Vista was pretty bad.
It was garbage.
I'm glad that they still made an update about that, but the
Mhm.
fact that they have to go out and say this is like the fact that
Yeah.
people are still using this is surprising.
Yeah,
It's funny, but
it's sad at the same time.
A little bit.
Like, why? Please, people, just upgrade. Windows 10 is good now.
I guess maybe like in some like foreign countries that might apply a lot. Like people who go to like internet cafes.
Maybe that's
in
the
like
case. Well,
in like Europe or not Europe, but like Africa maybe.
in Africa,
Like,
you have to go all the way down to the countries that to the places that
because I would say like Asia, but they have like supercomputers there.
have
So,
you
like,
seen
Korea
those?
stuff. Yeah.
I'll include in the show notes some. I think Linus Tech Tips, their YouTube channel that I watch.
Yeah.
They actually went to, I believe it was Taiwan, somewhere in Southern Asia, and one of those internet cafes, like super luxurious internet cafes.
Yeah.
And he did a tour of it. You can literally live there. And then the gaming setups that they have there, it's like, for the fact that you don't own, like nobody owns this stuff, it's just kind of like to rent, is incredible. It's like they got the highest top of the line gear for people to just rent out and use.
Those kinds of places are crazy.
Why aren't those a thing in America? Because that would be amazing. That
would make a lot of money.
Every college campus have one, you would make money. You would make
definitely.
bank. Because although you would probably have people living there instead of doing anything
That's
else.
also true. You'd have people living there.
Yeah.
But I was watching on Netflix Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, and I watched the Korea episode, and he does the same thing. He goes and
tours one?
He goes there and he like plays games for like for like a day.
Really?
With like one of the people there. But it's funny because Anthony Bourdain, so he doesn't care about
Yeah,
any
he does not.
he doesn't
care
know
about
anything about video games and doesn't care at all about what's going on.
He seems like the last person on the entire planet to know anything about video games.
Oh no, he definitely was in that episode, but I thought that it was interesting that he was there, and he was, because the way that this place worked is basically everyone had these giant supercomputers with really nice layouts in front of them, in like rows of like 20 people by like 50 people and like 30 people front and back of them.
If I remember right, the one that I watched was like 3 of the floors were completely filled with gaming computers.
Yeah.
Completely filled. And this is a skyscraper. So
man.
like so three of the floors.
That crazy,
well, it wasn't maybe a skyscraper. I guess like
a massive complex though.
It was like mall sized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were like 3 floors of just gaming stuff, and then there was like living quarters where you could rent out like sleeping space if you wanted to. There was like kitchens and places where you could go cook if you wanted to.
See, this place, the way that they had it is that you play your games and then you can call people to deliver you food.
There
was and because it's a half cooking show, half like culture show.
Yeah.
It was Anthony Bourdain trying to play this like anime like fighting game or whatever for like 10 minutes, and then the other 10 minutes was
trying
like,
the food.
they'd deliver food and it'd be him trying to eat the
the one I saw, they had like special buttons that you would just press a button and somebody would bring it to you.
Yeah.
And then like it would just get added to your tab. Like you didn't actually have to pay or stop doing anything. You could keep playing your game. And this is exactly why there are all those stories of people dying in these places. It's because they're literally like people live there.
Yeah.
You can live your entire life in this one building if you wanted to, and just become Counter-Strike Pro, League of Legends Master. It just
StarCraft Legend.
I don't know. The one I saw, I don't know if they had StarCraft. I'm sure they have every main competitive game that you can think of, though.
Yeah.
At least that are popular in Asia. I would love to go tour one of those places. I bet they smell really bad, though.
They probably smell like a lot of like. I haven't been to any of them, but I imagine like LAN events, like that'd be fun.
Yeah.
They're the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where you bring all your stuff and you're there and you're just sitting there for a few days, so
everybody's
smells
sweating together.
Everyone's sweaty because you're in a big sweaty room.
Well, they're air conditioned, so I don't know if.
Well, the nicer ones are, but I'm sure like.
Yeah,
I'm just
there's
thinking
probably
like
some
LAN event
cheapo
kind
one.
of thing.
There's probably a cheapo gaming building that you can go to.
I'm sure.
The discount dollar gaming pavilion.
Maybe. It'd be
really cool to go see one though.
I'd be interesting to go to one of those for like an afternoon.
Yeah, just to see.
Just to experience it and to say that you've done it.
Yeah, because it's something that's completely alien here in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like it, which surprises me.
Well, the only
honestly.
thing that I can think of are like specific LAN events, but those aren't like specific like buildings. Those are more like, hey, let's all get together and play like Overwatch here.
It's a temporary
let's do like
thing.
a tournament here for 3 days, or like even here on campus they do like boiler LAN.
Yeah, they do LAN events on campus, and
yeah,
but they're like 1 day or 2 day events.
They're like 1 day, they'll like
they're
rent out a
done.
room. Yeah, and that's it.
Whereas
like
these
actual,
are permanent
yeah.
places. Like these people, the one that in the video I watched was actually sponsored, and all their gaming computers were provided by NVIDIA graphics cards.
Oh, wow.
Like this was legit, super
Yeah.
official, which we have
Which is
none
insane.
of
We have
here in
nothing
the
like
US.
that in the
I can't
US.
even imagine it being in the US. Like, I don't know.
I
Just
could see that in like a really big, like I could see that in like LA or like New York.
maybe
like one.
But even then, I'm like, I don't know if it's just a culture thing, but I feel like here in the U.S. it would probably get trashed.
I
But
don't think
even
it'd
then, I don't know if they might get super trashed in there as well.
That's the thing.
and we don't know.
I don't have a frame of reference other than from media.
Yeah, and they're gonna show the most idealized version of
For the
that
most part,
thing.
yes.
I would still love to go see one. That'd be so cool.
Maybe over the summer we can
Road trip
road trip over to China.
to Korea. Korea would be really cool to go
Korea
to.
would be interesting to go to, but who knows?
All right.
Although I guess that kind of leads into board gaming and stuff like that.
Yeah. So moving from the electronic games to the physical games, I'll let you lead this one.
Okay, so over the weekend I went to over in town there's like this board gaming place that you can go in where you can basically go in and rent a board game for a day and play that. So I kind of went in and I've been playing a lot of the games that they have there, and there's just a lot
What's
of
the name of the place again?
it's called Merlin's Beard.
Okay.
It's here in town. I figured I wouldn't name drop because we don't need to. But
No, we should name drop because
I feel like it's such a good place that it's worth name dropping.
yeah, if anybody's in the West Lafayette area, go to Merlin's Beard. Go experience the beauty that is their board gaming shop.
So the way that their shop works, we aren't sponsored by them at all or anything, but we're just saying this because we think
that would be
they're awesome. That would be awesome sponsorship, but that's besides the point. But basically the way it works is you go in there and they're like a restaurant normally. So they have like food and drinks and stuff, just kind of snacks. Nothing too complicated, but you go in there and then you also can rent any of their hundreds of board games that they have there.
So it's not really rent. It's more of, so you pay a flat fee to get through the door, and you stay as long as you want, and you just pick board games. Like you said, there's like hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Just pick board games off their massive wall of board games, and you just sit there and play all day.
Yeah.
It's a $5 flat fee, and then if you want food or snacks or whatever,
You pay extra whenever you want that, and
I guess it's a board game version of the gaming buildings. We were
yeah,
just
that's
talking
what I was
about.
that's kind of why I wanted to segue that over because it's kind of a similar thing. But
didn't
for
even
board
think of
games.
that.
I know you don't. And also, it's a lot more laid back because it's instead of it being like this big like complex with like thousands of like
It's just a mom
people
and pop
sitting
shop.
there. It's just a little like corner store basically.
Yeah,
It looks kind of like a bar.
If you just walked by, well, there's a bar right next door.
There's
If you
a bar
just walked,
store.
if you just walked over there, you would have no idea what it is. You'd think it'd be like a restaurant or something because you look in, they have like I think it was a bar at one point because
Yeah.
they have a main bar.
They have like a bar counter.
Yeah, which they have a bunch of the board,
Yeah.
like their main board games
But
on.
instead of it, like at an actual bar, it's just covered in board games, and behind them is like a wall, like
Yeah.
a library shelf.
Instead of a
board
wall
games.
of booze, it's a wall of board games, and it's amazing.
Now these board games, I find that it's interesting, like how many different board games there are just that exist.
Yeah, and
Like,
some of
some
them
of
are
them-
super obscure. They have some super obscure ones that I have never seen before.
They have ones that are like Kickstarter only.
Mhm.
They have some that are like hundreds of dollars to buy. They have some from like the 80s. Like they have like
Yeah,
Heroes Quest, which I think is from the 80s.
yeah, you can get some really unique board games. Not get them, but play
You
some.
can
really
play them.
unique
Although they
ones.
all are also a board game store, so
Yeah.
you can buy some of the more popular ones. Like you can buy like some of the more like card packs, and
Mhm.
for like some of the more like Magic or Magic the Gathering, they had a couple card packs.
Yeah,
They sold like Catan and stuff like that.
yeah, you can
So
buy
some of the more popular but obscure games.
Yeah, but it is
So.
great. I've only been there once so far, but
I've been there a number of times because me and my friend love it. But
yeah. So when I went there, I didn't know what to expect. I was thinking, oh, we'll be there maybe like 1 or 2 hours. We ended up being there for 4.5 hours, nonstop board gaming.
that's how a lot of my trips to that place have been. Is they all have been like, okay, we'll come here and we'll play a couple games and we'll be here for maybe like 2-3 hours.
Like
But-
half the day.
And that was like the first time we went. Nowadays we're like, okay, we're gonna be here for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna camp out here for a while. We're
Yeah.
gonna just sit down and play these games or try something crazy. So
It's intense, and when you go in there, there's always people in there that are there before you, like they've been there before you got there,
yeah,
and they are still there.
they're doing
when
the
you
same
leave.
thing. Yeah.
Like when you leave, they're still there.
Usually there's It varies. Sometimes you'll have people that'll come in, they'll play one game, and then they'll leave. Or there's some people that go there and start like a giant 6-hour board game.
Well, they do like tournaments there as well. So like you can go in and set up a session, and they'll keep track of who won each game.
Do they
and
really?
Yeah, it's maybe not. It's not necessarily a tournament. But they will like track progression. So you can make like a league. I guess is what they call it. It's league play of a game. So you pick a board game, you can come in with your buddies, and they'll keep track every single time you come in there who won. And at the end of each month or whatever, however many times you go, you can figure out who is like the leader, who's winning, and you can kind of have a competition, see who's best at the game.
But overall, I think it's just like a really cool place that I think a lot of more places should adopt this sort of idea of half restaurant, half rent a board game of idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a really really neat concept. That
I think having more of them would be really nice, because one of the great things about it, board gaming is having a resurgence, but since the advent of video games, it hasn't been as big as it was before video games.
It's definitely having a big kind of surge, though.
But the problem with board gaming right now is because there's all these cool new board games coming out, it's hard to decide what to get, because board games aren't cheap.
No.
They're relatively
especially
expensive.
like the newer, like bigger ones, because there are some cheap ones where it's like, oh, you pay $30 and you can get this Cards Against Humanity, basically.
Yeah.
You can get stuff like that, or you can pay like $200 and you get something like Mechs and Minions, which is like giant like metal pieces, like giant, just complicated stuff like that.
It's really high-end board games, and they might be the most exciting board games you've ever played, but that's a huge barrier to entry.
Yeah.
So having places like this lets you try out a board game, and you're funding them, and they make money and profit off of it because it's $5. They buy the board game, and if you come in or have 30 people come in to play that one game, then it's paid for, basically, or several times over. Whereas if you were to go in and, like, if you wanted to buy that game, it might cost you a ton of money, whereas you could go in and try one board game that you're, like, a little iffy on, decide if you like it, and it only costs you $5. Heck, if you even want to get this a super expensive game, you could just keep coming in,
and you would get your money's worth out of it because you're playing the game that you want. And it's just a really neat concept that I think a lot of places could use and adapt, and it's just a fun place for me and my brother to visit a lot. So
it's a cool place to hang out with friends, and it's a hangout spot. And there aren't very many hangout spots around even cities or towns anymore. It's just, I don't know. There's not like a watering hole like that where it's just a calm atmosphere to socialize and have
even
play
a lot
like
of
games together.
Even nowadays, a lot of like social places like that, there are a lot of like, let's all get hyped and let's get crazy and stuff
just
like that.
Even if you just like look at campus, and the main place that people like go to hang out, they go to the bars. That's why the bars are so
they go to the bars, or they go to
packed
fraternities and sororities.
Yeah, and those aren't necessarily like super chilled environments for most people. For the average person, I don't know if those are as calm or like accessible as a place like this is. This place is super accessible. You could take your kids there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And they would have a great time just as much as if you took your grandparents there.
I was there the other day, and there was actually like probably some like 3 middle school kids just chilling in there.
Yeah.
Like just by themselves.
Yeah, and they can mingle just fine. It's not like a bar or something where it's like adults only or those kinds of things.
Now they
Super
do have
accessible.
bar stuff there. They are technically still a bar because they serve alcohol and stuff like that. But
yeah, but
like on
they
tap and stuff,
it's like a restaurant. Like you can still buy the alcohol.
It's just like a normal regular restaurant.
Yeah,
basically.
And I love it. I think it's a great setup, and I think more places should kind of adopt this kind of style, just like you said.
And I'm kind of surprised how much of a resurgence you brought this up, but I'm surprised how much of a resurgence board games are kind of getting. Like I can't figure out why it's getting a resurgence, but I can't really figure out like what's causing that, because there's a lot more people nowadays that I'm noticing are getting a lot more and more adapted to playing these board games, whereas before they were a lot more. You have Monopoly and you have
Shoots and Ladders,
Shoots and Ladders, all these boring games, things that are meant for more like childish things. But you'll go into these places like Merlin's Beard, for example, and you'll see people in like their 30s or 40s playing these games, or you'll see really young kids playing these like newer games and things like that. And I'm kind of trying to figure out what that resurgence is like caused by.
I think it's because, this is my personal opinion, but I think it's because there's a lot better board games. I think what happened was when video games started taking over, they started taking over, and all of there was just no creative place for board games. Video games took that entire kind of market, or not the entire market, but they took the main market share for the smaller board games. Like, there are good board games that came out, but very few and far between. Whereas right now we're having this huge resurgence where there's lots of really good board games coming out all at once. And I think part of that is, one, people miss board games, and two, it's just there's more people trying. There's more people in the market trying to do it. And because of that, there's more money available. The demand is a little higher, and the supply is trying to keep up with that.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what's causing that demand to go up more, because I don't feel like because there are I feel like it's just a recent happening that all these people are starting to turn to board games, whether they be someone who hasn't touched a video game in their life to someone who used to play video games a lot like myself and now is shifting a lot more towards tabletop games.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of it is probably just that we're getting better board games than what we had before. Because the board games that stuck and are like still played today are the good board games, or they're board games with like infinite replayability.
Yeah.
I mean, like, moving on to our next topic, Dungeons and Dragons and like role-playing games, those kinds of board games never lost popularity. They have always held about the exact same amount of popularity. They've probably fluctuated by like a certain percentage, like a small percentage, but
especially with things like Dungeons and Dragons.
But they've never died because they are really popular and they have like near infinite replayability.
Yeah.
You can approach a dungeon, a D&D dungeon, completely differently every single time.
The same dungeon.
Yep. And you can play it with your buddies, and it's a solid board game. It's not like your Monopolies or your Chutes and Ladders, which aren't, or even like your Risks, where they're very mainstream. Everybody knows what they are, and they're kind of boring because they've been around for so long.
Yeah.
Like, people do enjoy them, but they're just not. They don't have the kind of infinite replayability so much.
Well, they have the infinite replayability, but it gets to the point where I've played Monopoly 20 times, so I kind of get I know what I'm going to get out of it.
Like, I don't like Monopoly because I've played it more times than I've ever wanted to play.
And at the end of the day, it's just a game where you're going to get screwed over.
Yeah.
And you're going to be upset, and everyone's yelling at each other. And
it's not
enjoyable.
It doesn't have its high points
much.
And its low points.
No.
Because it's one of those games where like, Monopoly is a game where somebody wins at the end, and they win by ruining everyone else. Yeah. And I think we've had better board game design to kind of prevent that from happening. You're not ruining everyone else. You're either working as a team. There's a lot more team-based games now.
That's also true.
Like, Dungeons and Dragons is one of the key things, and they've been around probably one of the longest of those kind of cooperative board games. Yeah. But there's a lot of new ones. Catan, however you want to pronounce it.
I wouldn't say Catan's necessarily cooperative.
But it's not adversarial. You're not.
I would say it's more adversarial.
You're not trying to ruin everybody as much as you are trying to complete your objectives. I don't know.
That's true.
Or Haunted House on the Hill, or what? Betrayal
on the House on the Hill.
On the House on the Hill. That game is an excellent game, and
it is mostly cooperative.
Half of it is cooperative. Yeah. And
then
the other half is cooperative for most of the team.
Yeah, it's cooperative for at least some of the team, but.
And I think more of those games are more fun.
Yeah, I think cooperative games are definitely getting a trend and growing, and they're a lot more enjoyable than when you're at each other's throats. Now, it's also fun to be at other people's throats when you're playing a game, but it's a lot more enjoyable to be working together towards a goal, and either everyone failing or everyone succeeding. Yeah. Or even just working as a group to get individual success. Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever played like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of game? I have played Dungeons and Dragons once. Okay. But I played with a group where everyone was more experienced than I was, and it was a campaign that I wasn't too familiar on because basically we started everyone off super high level. Okay. So everyone was overpowered, and also there were some people in the group that had only played once, whereas there were other people who had played 4 or 5 times already. So there were people like me who were still trying to figure out like how magic worked and how spellcasting, like the logistics behind that. Yeah. Because if you get into it, you can either go super complicated or not very complicated. Mm-hmm. So I was going kind of surface level entry area where I'm like, I sort of know what I'm doing, I sort of don't. I kind of need help figuring this out. Whereas the DM and 2 or 3 of the other players were already the people who were super complicated, knew all the details to that, and tried to min-max everything.
Yeah, and
Where it's hard to play with people where you have one or two people being the main guideline people and who are trying to min-max and have gotten to the point where they know their statistics very well and know how to play the game very well, whereas you're leaving the other half of the team out of it simply because of experience and because of the nature of the game.
I mean, that's why with Dungeons and Dragons, you usually play with the same group over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because when everybody's at different skill levels, then everybody approaches the game differently, and it makes things frustrating for both sides. Like if somebody was min-maxing and they had to work with somebody who was just on a surface level, then that's probably way more frustrating, or just as frustrating as the lower level player just playing with somebody who has more experience, because they're trying to level up, they're trying to figure out their skills, but the other guy is totally destroying everything in the dungeon. And is
well, not necessarily because the other people were higher level, but because they understood the way the mechanics of the game deeper. So for example, like I was a cleric, so I knew that I could heal people and cast spells. What I didn't know is I had a limit to how many spells I could cast each time. So I was confused by how I could cast these spells and to what extent and what damage they would do. Whereas there was another wizard character, for example, that would be constantly putting out these spells, constantly casting things, constantly doing the rolls that he knew how to do. Whereas I was still kind of confused, and because of that, I wasn't playing the game properly because I didn't know how these mechanics worked.
Okay.
And I was kind of left behind because I don't know how these mechanics work, thus they'll have another person step in and do those for me.
Yeah,
rather.
Which I think is, you can fix those kinds of problems with like good explanations, but yeah, going into a Dungeons and Dragons game like that is completely different than if you were to progress through the game like normal, where you start a campaign at a low level, everybody's working through it at the exact same way, that because everybody's trying to figure out their characters.
I think the main issue was the fact that everyone started off at max level. So because it was my first time playing, I had to start off at a level 10 character where I already have all my spells, and I have to figure out how those work and how each of those work, whereas I had never played before, so I didn't even know how normal spellcasting worked.
Yeah, so
whereas someone like him, he already knew all that stuff, and it didn't matter to me.
You might have been invincible, relatively invincible, but I
don't know what I can do as an invincible.
So you're destroying everybody, but you don't know how you're destroying them. It's just sort of happening.
That's kind of how I felt about it, which was still fun, and I enjoyed it a lot, but
yeah, I mean,
better explanations and sort of things like that are important.
Yeah, it's fun to be like the overpowered guy and just wreck everything, but when you don't know what's going on, you're not having as much fun as you probably should.
Now, have you ever played any of those kinds of Dungeons, D&G kind of role-playing games, or?
I'm trying to remember. Honestly, I don't think I have played an actual game of D&D. What I have done is I have watched a lot of D&D.
I have too, but still.
So there's kind of this trend kind of running parallel to all of the resurgence in board games, is a surge in the number of people playing board games on YouTube, like recording their board games and posting it. And I watch a lot of those, probably more than I should, but it's a fun way to, because a lot of these role-playing games, they build a story.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch and progress the story. One of the channels that I used to watch, I don't really watch them anymore. I'm not sure what the state of the channel is right now, but is Geek and Sundry. And they used to have, we watched it, this show called Titan's Grave, which was a D&D style game. And they had a bunch of famous or relatively famous internet personalities come on and basically play the game.
They played a very narrative-driven story.
Yeah.
Based in a D&D sort of system.
Well, I mean, D&D's story-driven as well.
Yeah.
And it's driven by players' actions.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the first one that I really got into and started watching.
That was also my kind of first introduction. That was part of the reason why I wanted to join my friends to play D&D, because I watched famous people play it.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the resurgence. Like, they came out parallel, so more people started YouTubing about or posting videos of them playing board games, just as people were getting more popular, and they both kind of caused
boost
each other. Yeah,
I could see that.
And then they both grew, but I don't know what the state of Geek and Sundry is now, but Geek and Sundry was a great way just like going to Merlin's Beard to
Introduce
find
you to those new games.
to find new board games that are interesting that I have never heard of. That's how I found Settlers of Catan, and I have always loved that. Like ever since I started playing that game, I love that game. That's one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
Ticket to Ride is another game that I have, and that game was introduced to me by this channel, and it's things like this that really get you interested in board games, and that's where I learned most of my ideas about Dungeons and Dragons and like role-playing board games.
Is watching other people kind of do these things, or have someone explain this to you personally.
Well, and when you watch it enough, you figure it out. Like you don't necessarily need somebody to explain to you what an intelligence roll is, or an int roll.
Yeah.
If you watch people make it for the same actions over and over again, like, oh, I want to go find an item, gotta do an int roll. Like, I never needed somebody to explain that to me.
Or I need to do a perception check because there might be a dude around me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, it's dark in here.
Yeah.
Just better make a perception check. Those kinds of things I learned just as well, if not better, because I was watching people play it and do those kind of, like, live those actions out over time than if somebody were to explain it to me straight off. That was the first one. Another great channel.
Well, before we get off Geek and Sundry, I feel like a lot of their videos are a lot more interesting because they also have a lot of like very personality oriented people. Like they have Will Wheaton. And
do they
like
still
that.
have Will Wheaton?
Will Wheaton's the host of one of their shows. So
is it?
He's
Are you still subscribed?
I'm still
to them?
subscribed to them, and I still follow them. So you mentioned earlier that you don't follow them as well, but I still follow them. Not as much as some people, but they do a lot of Twitch streaming, surprisingly. So they'll do so they'll do like a Twitch stream of their games every couple days. I don't follow that at all.
That would actually be a cool thing to do, to set up a Twitch stream and Twitch stream board games.
Yeah, because they'll Twitch stream like some of their like D&D campaigns, or if they're playing an individual board game, they might do that. From what I assume that they're doing.
Because that format is pretty good for for those kinds of games.
Because it's short, or because it's like Twitch is typically kind of more short.
Well, it's longer than a YouTube video, but it's less produced than like a video or a movie.
Yeah.
So like a YouTube video is generally are short, but Twitch streams are long. YouTube videos are highly edited. They are production based a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then you get to Twitch streams, which they still have some production to them, but they're
a lot more casual.
Yeah, it's almost like a radio production where you can see the radio broadcaster while you're going.
Yeah. And
you can see what they're doing. And when you're doing things like video gaming, that's perfect. You can see what actions they're making in the video games. You can see them sometimes if they have a webcam. And if you were to play a board game, you could see the board game. You can see the players making it. You can hear everything that's going on. That's actually a really good format.
From what I've seen, I think I've watched one or two of their streams. It's pretty interesting just the way they do it. Because they'll usually have one giant table and they'll be playing there. Or they'll have everyone like on a couch and they'll be playing D&D and work that way, just kind of casually. But Geek and Sundry, they'll have like they do like one main, like they have a currently ongoing longer form Dungeons and Dragons series, so longer than Titan's Grave, about like 2 or 3 hour episodes.
Okay, are they just going through like the normal campaigns, or are they like developing their own campaigns?
It's like individual characters, it's one giant campaign basically that they have going. And then they just started Tabletop season 2, which is their like individual. Which is Will Wheaton playing board games with people.
That's why I unsubscribed, because they weren't doing that for a long time.
Yeah, it takes because they were making all those episodes. So they did that. They just started a new series involving escape rooms.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So they've only had one episode so far, but it's basically they'll build in their offices, they'll build an escape room, and they have people try and solve that within like an hour.
That's really cool.
So they build their own escape rooms and then do that, which is interesting.
That is really cool. Yeah. Have you done an escape room before?
I have done an escape room before.
I haven't.
I've only done one.
I haven't done any before.
You should try it.
I
escape
really
rooms
want
are really
to.
Interesting.
My old roommate did one, and he came back and he was like, "That was awesome."
Yeah. It's just a fun experience to try and do all this puzzle solving and figure out what's going on to achieve a goal. And it's also in person, so it's a lot more interesting, and you're a lot more engaged.
And there's a sense of urgency because you're like, I'm paying for this.
That's also true. there's a sense of urgency in that you're paying for this, and also you don't want to fail because you are paying.
Yeah, you're paying for this. Like, I want to see the proper ending for this.
But you don't think about it when you're in the thing. You're like, okay, I need to get out of this. You're like, I need to get out of this room. I need to solve this puzzle.
Yeah, you're in the role-playing mentality when you're in there.
To some extent, you aren't like.
You're still yourself.
When you're constantly playing, you aren't like, okay, I need to figure out how to get my money's worth. You're thinking more of, okay, how am I gonna solve this puzzle, which is a lot more engaging.
Well, that's the final goal of your money is to figure
No,
out
but
how to solve
you
the
aren't in the
puzzle.
middle of your like. Do you ever like when you're playing like Puzzle Quest or something like that? You don't play puzzle, but like when you're solving a puzzle
I played
that
Puzzle Quest,
okay.
so I know what you're talking about. But yeah, no, I
But like when you're solving like a 200-piece puzzle, are you like, okay, once I solve this, I'm gonna make sure I get my money's worth out of it. So I'm gonna solve
you
it.
buy it because you want that experience
Exactly.
of building the puzzle.
It's about the
But that's what I'm
experience.
saying is the experience of the room is to try your hardest to get out of the room.
Yes.
And so there's a little bit of disappointment at the end if you don't actually complete
There
the
is,
room.
but it's because you didn't complete the room, not because you lost $20.
Yeah, but in relation, you do lose that $20.
Yeah, but it's not what you're thinking about when you're
All right.
when you're in an escape room.
All right, that
You just need to try an escape room, and you'll know what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
I'll go try one and I'll come back and tell you how it went.
Yeah, we'll do one of these days. I'll take you to one.
I should go back and watch Geek and Sundry then if they're gonna.
They've been putting out some new stuff. Titan's Grave, no ETA on that because Titan's Grave takes forever for them to make.
I don't know if did they say they were gonna do a season 2 of that?
I mean, they left season 1 on a cliffhanger,
They did,
and they said that they were gonna do season
and then
2.
they sold the book, and then they didn't make another one.
No, I think the problem is the way that they do it is
It looks
Titan's
like a
Grave is very,
D&D.
very heavily structured and scripted.
Well, no, it's exactly like D&D.
No, it's D&D, but the way it works is they're building the entire universe for their characters and also within the universe of Titan's Grave.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it super complicated.
Yeah,
for
well,
them.
they're building the story that in the Titan's Grave universe, and D&D they do kind of keep things more contained into like one D&D book, like Dungeon Master book.
Yeah.
Basically, it has several campaigns in it, several complete stories in it. Whereas
Which they are writing
if I remember
for
right,
them they're writing their own stories.
if I remember right, Titan's Grave is sort of like that, except all of those separate campaigns lead into a larger campaign. Like they're all part of a larger campaign.
Well, to my understanding, the way it works is Titan's Grave isn't exactly D&D, so the book explains all the characters and the monsters and the stats for those things. Because if you've ever played, which you haven't played D&D, but the way that the stuff works is you'll have the player book, which is how player mechanics work. Yeah. And then you'll have a DM book, which explains how all the monsters and how being a DM works and the roles that involves that. And then you'll also have campaign books, which are the written stories. And what they have to do is they not only have to introduce the character books, they have to do the story books for these campaigns, but they also have to manage, okay, how does this work within the realm of Titan's Grave? They have to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a short process.
They're writing their own campaign books, which takes a while to do. So that's my excuse on why they're taking so long.
Yeah,
Anyways.
But it would be very nice if they would either hire more people to go do that and finish it, because Titan's Grave is amazing.
You just need to get back on that.
It is a great series. Like, even just if you don't care about board games, it's a great series just to watch.
Yeah. It's just interesting to see kind of how stories unfold.
Yeah. And the people that they have in it are super interesting.
Yeah.
They're like super interesting internet personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters that they play are really genuinely interesting. I don't know. It's good. It's really good.
And also recently with Geek and Sundry, still on the topic, but they recently announced National Tabletop Day as a
They've
thing.
been doing this for several years now, actually.
They've been doing this for a few years, but they just announced this year's one, and they're just...
When is it supposed to be?
I want to say it was like April something. But
Oh, really? That close?
yeah, fairly close. Let me double check.
I wonder if
source.
Merlin's Beard's going to do an event for that. That'd be really cool.
So, according to their website, for International Tabletop Day 2017, it's happening on April 29th. And you get involved either by going to retailers, going to community events, hosting your own events personally, like at your house or whatever, or like watching their stream, which is because this is sort of like a marketing
Or you
thing to
do
some
all
extent.
of the above.
Or you do all of that. But
You find a game building that also has a game shop, and then you live stream their Twitch stream while you're playing board games.
Go to Merlin's Beard, which is and start your own community event there and do a stream and stream that.
Yes.
I'd be
Let's
down
do
for
it.
that.
Let's
I'd be
do it.
down.
That would be really cool, actually, to
Although
organize
Merlin's
an
Beard
event
is
like
actually listed as one of their retailers.
that. It is?
Yeah.
As a Geek and Sundry retailer?
So I'm going. I'm going to their website.
Are you sure it's the Merlin's Beard we go to? Or
So it says, discover the world of tabletop gaming, find great places to play games, and it says you can go retailers or community events, and it has a list of those, and you can enter your location. So I'm just going to hit all and go
West Lafayette?
West Lafayette. West Lafayette, which has, according to the search, I'm doing this right now, they have Griffin Gaming, which is a place somewhere on Main Street. And then there's
I've never heard
Merlin's
of that.
Beard, which is...
Okay, so it is
So it's the Merlin's
it
Beard.
is the Merlin's
Yeah.
Beard that we go to. That's
And those are both listed as retailers.
okay. That's
so,
really interesting.
I don't think they have events organized either this far ahead or at all. But
That would be cool to organize an event there, though.
yeah, for that day.
See if we can get a bunch of people together to do it.
Yeah.
Just pack that place full.
I mean, I've packed that place before.
Yeah. I don't know how they handle. After I've been there, how many people did you say you went with the first time you went there?
We went with 20 people.
How did you fit 20 people in there?
It's funny because the owner still talks about, every time we come in, they'll be like, do you have 20 people this time? We always tell them, we're like, okay, because we have to tell them how many because we're using dorm funds for it. But it's basically like, we'll come in and be like, we have 10 people. And he's like, okay, good, you don't have 20 people.
20 people. How did you fit that many people?
That's
incredible.
Well, we covered like half. We basically took up like 2/3 of their store.
Yeah, so
just as our group.
There's like on one wall they have all the booths. There's like 5 or 6 booths against that one wall.
Yeah, they have one table in the corner.
Yep.
They have like 2 or 3 center tables in the middle of like the walkway, and then I think they have another corner table.
So
we filled up basically their back table against the very back wall.
Yeah.
We had that full. We had 2 of the booths full, and then we also had the far corner table full. So the center tables and I think one of the booths was still open with the 20 people.
That's incredible. I can't even like
2/3 of the store was full basically.
You were super lucky that there was nobody there when you went because
there were like 2 or 3 people still.
Yeah, but I mean
parties, but still.
Like when we went a few weekends ago,
that was packed.
It was packed.
It was that busy with only our group.
Yeah, if you had done that and gone with your group, most people wouldn't be able to play board games. There wouldn't be enough tables.
No.
They would have had to figure out a way to accommodate all of you guys.
It's funny because this time I didn't see what he was doing, but he was talking with like some sort of like business looking guy. He was talking to that person.
Guy.
I don't know who it was, but he was like talking to someone at like a table, like the owner guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, if you guys have to come in, I have to kick this guy out so that I can actually manage running the store while you guys are gone.
He seems really like they both seem really cool because it is a mom and pop shop.
Yeah.
Like it's owned by a couple.
The owner and his wife.
Yeah, and they run the entire thing. And
they have a couple people working for them, but they only come in. I don't
even know if they have.
It's
that
a different
many people.
person working there every time. I swear.
It's just their buddies coming in.
Because it's like there's like one college kid that works there sometimes, and another that works another time, and I've only seen those 2. But it's basically just them. It seems like just the mom and pop.
Yeah, but it's a great place.
It really is.
I was worried when you told me that there was nobody in there that it was a place that like is always completely empty.
Yeah.
But from when we went last time where it was packed, I'm like, I have no worries about this place. This place is awesome, and there's lots of people going to it. And I hope more people go to it because it deserves all the business it can get. I just wish that they would do like advertising campaigns on campus so people knew more about it because I don't know if people on campus really know.
I don't think a whole lot.
It might be spreading by word of mouth, but at the same time, I don't know.
I've only heard word of mouth from it, but I mean, we aren't sponsored by them at all. But
man, if we could get sponsored by
them at
this
point,
man,
from how much praise we've been giving them. But kind of going back to board gaming, it's interesting that they have that for National Tabletop Day as listed. But you were talking about another channel. You were about to.
Yeah, so I was going to mention a channel. It's a Rooster Teeth run channel. I mean, I don't even know if it's its own channel, but it's a setup called Heroes and Halfwits.
I have not heard of
and
this.
And it's, if I remember right, it is a. I don't think it's an actual D&D campaign. Like they made up their own D&D campaign using the D&D rule sets, but it's it's a typical Rooster Teeth thing where it's high production value. They have a table in the center. It's like a screen basically that they change the base image on, and they have characters that they play, and they have little figurines for all that, and you can get a visual representation of what this world looks like. Instead of everybody just kind of having their own imaginary. I mean, there's still a lot left to the imagination. Yeah. But the amount of stuff that you can actually see is really nice, and you can understand exactly what's happening.
It's still the tabletop board game.
It's still Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Whereas something like Titan's Grave, it's all verbal. So they have visuals and pictures that are drawn with it
which help a lot.
They help a lot.
Because have you ever tried to listen to a D&D game?
It's hard.
Like just straight listening to it? Yeah, I tried listening to one once. I was completely lost in the first 5 seconds. Yeah. And that was them explaining what was going on.
That's my problem with, like, there's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast by the people who do My Brother, and Me. They also do a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
That's cool.
And they have like a campaign with it. It's not like super well structured because their humor, they don't.
It's them. Yeah. They don't do anything.
Their humor is very off the wall, but it's them and their dad playing Dungeons and Dragons basically, and they're running through just a typical campaign, but they have their antics, which are fun. But it's a lot harder to listen to because you're trying to visualize this all while they're giving their banter and stuff like that. So it's a lot more difficult to kind of manage and talk and listen to. But it's still enjoyable. It's just harder to do, like, to listen to when you don't have those visuals.
Yeah, when you don't have anything to go off of, it's really hard to imagine these things that they're talking about because it's like all fantasy world stuff. And it's not like a novel.
But you still are imagining it in your mind, even when you're playing the tabletop game.
Yeah, but you're never going to get the same detail as if you saw it, or even in like a novel. In a novel, they give you like a rough description of what a goblin looks like, or what a flying spaghetti monster looks like. They tell you a rough outline. You can get a good image. Everybody has
enough to visualize.
Everybody has a different image, but everybody's image is slightly the same.
Or you'll have like a model or something to base that off of, to kind of project that on. So if, for example, like if you had a dragon on your Dungeons and Dragons campaign and you brought in like a dungeon figure, like a dragon figure, you'd be like, okay, it's going to look something like this, or it is going to be that, depending on what the figure is.
Unless your dungeon master decides to bring in a brontosaurus as your dinosaur or your dragon. Because sometimes that happens. You're like, I need a prop. I grab a dinosaur.
Yeah, that happens.
For my dragon. I need a tree. Roll of toothpaste.
That's what Legos work really well for.
Yeah.
I've heard that is a good idea for when you're doing tabletop stuff, is have like Legos as your characters and as things like that, because it's a lot more structured like that.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Or if you had a lot of money, you could do something like Warhammer kind of.
Well, Warhammer is really similar to D&D, except it removes the role-playing aspect and you
replaces it with gameplay.
It's basically a real-time strategy game, except with except it's in the real world, and you need lots of rulers and tape measures and a really big board.
It's too much math and trying to figure out.
Have you ever watched a game of like Warhammer 40,000 or even just plain Warhammer?
I haven't watched it before. I've heard people try and explain it, and it's too complicated.
I've watched it before, and it is really complicated, but the visuals that you can get from that kind of a game are so cool. Yeah.
I love the miniatures and the fact that, and kind of the layouts of the tables that you can get from that and from the gameplay of it, but just the actual gameplay mechanics are so complex and convoluted to me.
And it's expensive to get into.
It's not only expensive.
You think normal board gaming is expensive. Go look at Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
You're like, I spent $35 on a little piece of metal.
I spent $35 on 12 pieces of plastic that look kind of like Marines.
Yeah, they look vaguely like Marines. Actually, they look more than vaguely like Marines.
They look very closely
They're
like
really
Marines.
High-end models.
Yeah, they're very high-end models, but they're super expensive and not good for entry-level kind of games. But I love the miniatures of those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's what makes Heroes and Halfwits really good, other than the people that they have doing it. So they have personalities from Rooster Teeth. Rooster Teeth is one of the largest internet content producers out there. And they have a bunch of other channels, and they bring together multiple channels. I believe Funhouse, which is one of their groups, does their own set of Heroes and Halfwits. And the Rooster Teeth, Rooster Teeth Austin, the main Rooster Teeth.
Their main headquarters, kind of.
Yep, they do their own Heroes and Halfwits. They're completely separate campaigns with separate characters, but they, it's really interesting and it's funny, and I think that YouTube has been a really good medium for things like these role-playing games, and it's been a good way to get people excited about board games in general again. I'm super excited that board games are popular because We were talking last week about how great it was to sit down and play a game together, just to not think about it, because so many games nowadays are online where you don't see the other person on the other side. You can hear their voice if you're playing on Xbox Live or PlayStation Network or whatever. If you have a
But
party,
it's all anonymous. It's not very like introductory to other people. You don't get that same presence of other people as you do with a digital game.
Well, and then at the same time, you can't just pick up and play a game. You can't just sit down and be like, yeah, me and my buddies, me and my family are just going to sit down and play this game right now because we feel like it. Whereas if you were to do that on like an Xbox or whatever, sure, there's some local multiplayer games, but there's so many fewer games now than there used to be.
A lot more games are shifting to online only, where you can only play online, or you can only do from other consoles, where it's a lot, and you can't there are a lot less games where you can just sit down on a couch and play with your buds.
Yeah, and even like taking that to the next step, even like LAN parties are becoming more difficult, where you have to connect to Xbox Live and play LAN, or you can't just do the old Age of Empires thing where everybody just connects on the same internet server and you can all play at once. You can, or like Warcraft 3, everyone just
plugs your computer and
plug your computer to everybody else's computer, and we all share the same local area net connection. Yeah, and it is perfect. There's no latency.
It's becoming a lot more.
It's super
scarce.
rare.
Yeah,
super rare. It's almost I don't know if any current games do something like that.
I know there are a few that do. Like Civilization does that, and a few others.
You can do that in Civilization?
I don't know about the newer one, but at least in Civ 5 you could.
Yeah, Civ 5 you could. If I remember.
That game is 8 years old.
It's an older game. I'm surprised at how long that game lasted, but it's a great game.
But still.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see how those are kind of shifting in board games, and how there's not a whole lot of like local games nowadays.
Which I really miss.
Either digital or, I mean, I guess board games are having their resurgence, but
like even just going and wanting to play a game. If I can play single player games all day. I can play online multiplayer shooters or whatever all day. But if I want to just sit down and have two people play the same game and like have a one-on-one connection with the game, it's really hard to do nowadays.
Yeah.
You can't just plug in a second controller and go and start playing. You have to either have multiple consoles, and who has the time or money or resources to have that constantly going?
Yeah.
And it's just not as nice as just plugging in multiple controllers.
Or just having a physical board and just sit down in front of a table with a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's why I really love board games, and I wish more video games would go back to doing those kinds of things. Because, I mean, you can just sit down and plug in your controllers and play Broforce.
Or Castle Crashers or whatever.
Yeah, which is great. The best gaming memories I ever have in terms of video games are being able to sit down with my buddies and play a local multiplayer game where you can yell and like shout and jump around, hang out and be social, but not social online where you're just like, it's like you're on a phone call, and it might be the most informal phone call you've ever had in your entire life, but
it's still a phone call.
It's still at the end of the day a phone call with just a few people.
Yeah,
it's not as fun or
not nearly as engaging.
Yeah, and definitely not as engaging. And I like board games for that. I like that board games bring us back to those days of you can sit down and have fun with a bunch of buddies without thinking about it.
And I know we've gone back multiple times to Merlin's beard, but another thing that I like about that is that you can also bring other, like, it's fun to sit around with a bunch of friends you know, but it's also fun to play board games with people that you don't know sometimes.
Yeah, just bring people in.
It's interesting to just have people come in and just hang out with you.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, I enjoy this thing. You guys are doing the thing I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean,
hang out.
Even when we went in and we had somebody just come in, join our game. We were playing our last game. We were getting started with a new board game, and somebody was looking for a group to play with.
Hang out with.
Yeah.
You just showed up, and we're like, sure, join on in.
Because it's a social thing, you're totally okay with like bringing other people in and trying it out and trying new games out.
Whereas something, if you're like on Xbox Live and someone joined your party because you're playing Call of Duty, you're a lot less likely to join in because you have your bubble. You don't want.
Well, you're just like, who the heck is this, and how did
you get in here? What are you doing here?
Yeah, because
there's a lot more. It's a lot more strange and a lot less welcoming.
Yeah, everything
to some extent.
Everything's a walled garden when you're using the internet. Your friends list is a walled garden. You get to pick and choose who's in your friends list. Your internet communications, like on Xbox Live, if I want to connect and have a party with my friends, it's a walled garden. We only let in the people that we know because that's who we want to talk to.
Now, random interactions do still happen, and in some cases they're a lot more extreme and crazy than
but
they
they're more
are
like confrontational because it's not like going to somewhere else like Merlin's Beard and where everybody's there to do the exact same thing. Everybody has their own, like everybody is there to have fun and play board games. You can get together. That's why places like those are so important and so nice to have, and I wish there were more of them because they're just a place where when you walk through that door, you can play board games, you can have fun, and even if you're by yourself, you could probably join in on a group, and they will be perfectly fine with bringing you in and having social interaction.
Even places like other arcades and stuff like Dave and Buster's nowadays, like you can kind of do the same thing with that now.
Yeah,
with arcades and stuff.
The arcade was the same way. It was a place where you could go in and you could be like, put your quarter down and be like, hey, I'll play the next game against you or with you or whatever.
Like I like Street Fighter, you like Street Fighter, let's both play together. Or hey, I need another person for X-Men. Let's join in and play 4-player.
We're playing Streets of Rage or whatever and we need a second player.
Yeah.
Or we played Golden Axe.
Yeah.
We played Golden Axe on the arcade and because it did come out on the arcade.
Yeah.
And you go play Golden Axe and it's like, oh, we could play with one person. It could just be me. Or I have like two. I think it's limited to 2 players.
I think it is 2-person.
Yeah, but you have somebody else and it becomes infinitely more fun because you can make fun of all the ridiculous things going on screen. Like,
or you might know a trick that another person doesn't. Like you might be playing like Space Invaders or whatever, and it's a single player game. But you can have other people watching you and be like, okay, you need to move your guy over here because he's going to be right here. Or you should wait to move your character here instead. And you get that feedback from other people that even if you were playing single player nowadays, like on your computer, you wouldn't be able to get that wouldn't be able to get that input. Yeah,
well, and then everybody has to go out and actually seek those kinds of things on their own. There's no like place where you can go and like congregate and be like, this is a cool place where I can. Like people try to, like forums and those kinds of things, attempt to be those kinds of social interactions, but they don't have the same kind of substance and the same
different atmosphere being in person with someone than it is being with someone's internet presence.
Yeah, when you see somebody in person, you know what their intentions are. When you're on the internet, you have no idea what the other person's intentions are. So it might be a really friendly place, but at any moment you don't know if somebody's just gonna be like start spamming you with a bunch of. Like
you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen because you don't see this person, you don't know them.
Or nothing might happen, but if you met that person in person, it might be a completely different experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean
you don't know.
The anonymous nature of the internet is great, but you can't build the same kind of interactions that having those kind of one-on-one interactions have. Like that's why the Nintendo has survived as long as it has, because even though its games, like its consoles have been kind of flops, it still is able to get people together on the couch and have those one-on-one interactions. The Wii U is a great console, and every Nintendo console up until this point has been one of those things where you and your buddies can sit down and play a game.
Now,
plug in controllers and great.
Now those games might not be the most exciting, or they might not have the best single-player games, but being able to sit on a couch in like Nintendo Land is incredibly entertaining.
A lot of times they do have those great games. It's just the number of them might be way less. Like the Wii U has a lot of really good games, but there's not like a really good multiplayer, local multiplayer.
But there's only a few of them. There's only 3 or 4 that you might play.
Yeah, there's not a huge.
Not enough to justify the $300 entry fee. Like we were going back to with board games. There's a big entry fee for some of these bigger games. Now these might be really fun, but it might be hard to get into something because you have to pay $300.
And this is exactly why those gaming buildings exist in Asia, is because people don't want to pay the money to have all those resources set up. They don't they may be making, I think they're big in the main financial cities. So like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Seoul, those big financial centers of Asia. They're super popular there because those people have money, disposable income for one, but also they don't have the space, resources, or time to to accommodate themselves the same way that those buildings can.
Yeah.
Like they can get food and they can have social interactions, play games, and they can have everything set up for them. They don't have to worry about everything's updated, everything's
Yeah.
good.
I don't need to pay $800 for a computer when I can go down the street and pay
Yeah. I paid
$80 a week
I think it
to
was
play this.
I think on average it's like $20 a month or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like an online it's like what you would pay on an online service,
Yeah.
except it's a physical place where you can go, everything. You can go in with a certain mindset,
Yeah.
which I think is really important. There's not as many places like that nowadays where you can just go in to a place and it
Hang
has
out.
a certain mindset in it. And when you walk through the door, everybody in there is going to have that same mindset as you.
Now, I haven't been to a convention at all, but I wonder if that's the same sort of mindset
It is.
to that.
Yeah, conventions are just like that.
Where you have a group of people going there with one intention in mind or one idea, like whether that be Comic-Con or more specific fan-based convention. Like here at Purdue, we had BoilerCon the other day, which I didn't go to, but I had some friends that did. And it's that kind of atmosphere of a convention where you have a bunch of people who all like some sort of pop culture, or even if you go to more specialized ones where they're all one fan of a specific show or of content, then kind of having that atmosphere of people is a lot more engaging.
Yeah, well, you can walk through the door and everybody there is going to, they might not have the same favorites as you, but they'll have similar interests.
They have the same mindset.
And you can talk to them about whatever. Like if you were to walk into a gaming convention or something, like either a board like Gen Con or
PAX
Comic-Con or
like
PAX, you walk through those doors, you know that you're going to be able to talk to people about board games. You're going to be able to talk to people about video games. You're going to know you can talk to people about books or whatever it is, your TV show that you like. They might not like the exact same thing as you, but they're going to be open to whatever your opinion is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main thing.
There are areas for discussion and for meeting people with similar likes.
Yeah, and we need more of those places nowadays. There's
a lot
not
more of
as
those
many.
physical spaces. Now, there are a lot of those places on the internet. The internet is known for having those kind of places.
But they're very niche and they're very hard to get to, hard to find, hard to sift out of all of the junk that's on the internet, because there's probably like 300 forums for that thing that you like.
There are probably 300
and they're all
different
separate.
Yeah, there's probably 300 different websites devoted just entirely towards your favorite show.
Yeah, whatever your favorite show is, there's probably hundreds of websites.
Hundreds of fan sites.
Not dozens, hundreds, because of the way the internet works. And so sifting through all of those to figure out, okay, which one is like the most popular, or which one should I be going to?
Which one is the best fit for me?
Like, that's not as easy as having Merlin's Beard. I want to talk to people about board games. I want to play board games with people. I go to Merlin's Beard every single weekend or whatever, and I know people there are going to be able to talk to me about board games. I know that I can enjoy it, and everybody there is there to have a good time, not to have any, for any other purposes, basically.
Yeah.
Which I find really, I don't know. Maybe it's just that we haven't had that kind of exposure to things nowadays because there's so few of them.
And because a lot of that has shifted to the internet.
And it's so refreshing to be able to do that, but it's great.
I would love to get more exposure to that sort of thing outside of the internet, because, like I said, so much of that nowadays is there's such a closed mindset on the internet in that you find your bubble and you stick with that bubble, rather than you go to these places and yes, it's still a bubble, but it's a lot more open and free discussion. Whereas on forums, you find your bubble and you get into this sort of mindset where anyone who's not in this bubble is wrong. And
Well, I mean, like everybody can subscribe to different things. Like on YouTube, like Heroes and Halfwits, that's a D&D thing that I watch, but you don't watch.
Exactly.
Now, Yogscast, I hardly ever watch anything from Yogscast, but they do board gaming too. They do gaming in general, like all sorts of gaming stuff. I don't watch them, but I know you do. And having that, like, knowing that I could talk, there's a forum where we can talk and discuss between the two of us without people worrying about, like, okay, is my group okay with
without even
you
the same
talking?
crossover. Yeah.
But, I mean, like, so with Yogscast, what is it that you like and enjoy about Yogscast?
So Yogscast for me, and I'm sure a lot of people, is weird because I was introduced to them in middle school. So I followed them from middle school because they had cool Minecraft. They were one of the first people who really did cool Minecraft videos.
It's hilarious that you say that Minecraft is what got you on them, because Minecraft is still one of the biggest
It's
YouTubing things.
one of the biggest
It's
things
insane.
for YouTubing, and it's still one of the things that that channel is known for. They have such a big Minecraft presence because of they got on that bandwagon early on because that's such a big audience. In that, I enjoyed their content a lot earlier, and they did a somewhat scripted, somewhat off the wall kind of like role playing game within Minecraft. I forgot the name of the game somehow.
RuneScape. That's
I was trying
another
to say RuneScape, but my brain knew that was wrong. But basically, they did like the scripted adventure sort of, where they went across this world that they created within Minecraft, and they had to defeat this evil guy or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they did that for a while, and then after that, I was like, I wasn't really interested in the channel a whole lot, so because they were making other video game content that I didn't like, or they were focusing too much on Minecraft when I stopped liking Minecraft. And
But they do board games as well now.
but then recently they've started doing board games and they've started doing other things. So I've always had them in the back of my mind because they did or content that I used to like, and I stopped watching their channel for a while because they started making content that I didn't enjoy, or they started focusing in other ways that I didn't like. But I still like their personalities and stuff like that. So I went back to them because I found out that they did board gaming stuff, because I thought that was kind of interesting, and they do a lot more like tabletop things where it's just them kind of as their personalities playing board games, which is fun, and I enjoy that. But it's kind of interesting to see how they do that and like that, and that's kind of how I discovered them. And from there, I've kind of rediscovered their channel a bit and gone back and kind of picked through, like, okay, this is like I like their Gary's Mod videos, or I like these videos, and kind of sort through that and see what other content they've made. So it's kind of just an interesting barrier. What is something that you've seen in a board gaming channel that you haven't really, or that you'd like to see in a board gaming channel that you haven't yet? Like, for example,
the
like
one thing,
Titan's Grave is something that's happened, but if like, what would be something that?
well, there's more and more channels doing things like Titan's Grave, where they're scripted, well, somewhat scripted D&D style things. Like that's what Heroes and Halfwits is. It's semi-scripted D&D campaigns, and I enjoy those. But there's more and more of them. One thing that I wish there was more of is like Geek and Sundry. Geek and Sundry is like the go-to place for board gaming stuff, but the main thing is their board game recommendations are probably one of my favorite parts of that channel. And when they stopped doing that, that's why I unsubscribed.
Yeah.
It's because I wanted to see what cool board games they saw so I can discover them. Exactly what Merlin's Beard is for. Same sort of thing.
For
board
discovering
game
new
discovery.
things
Because
and
I like
stuff
being
like
able
that.
to see what the new thing is, explore what options are out there nowadays. And that was a great way to see how diverse board games can be, how interesting things are. And I wish there were more channels, because as soon as Geek and Sundry stopped doing that for a while,
They've started to do that again now, but
but there was a huge gap where they didn't do it, and I had no idea what other channels I could do to watch that.
yeah,
Like, I really wanted more.
you want more informative channels where they tell you about what these games are, or they just show you what the game is.
because then I would buy the ones that they already suggested, or I would I would decide, I don't want those. But then I was like, they have no more videos. Because they don't give you a resource to really discover new board games as well. There aren't really good resources. It's places like Merlin's Beard or
these YouTube channels that explain
that let you discover the new board games, and there's not enough of them.
So you wish that there are kind of more discovery kind of things related to board games?
Yeah, I think that's a huge niche that doesn't really exist right now.
It's just it's hard to expose people to new things because it's just hard to find an audience for that. I guess.
Well, because if it's a game that nobody cares about, then whatever. But it's just, I don't know, being able to see it, and you don't have to spend all the money to buy the board game and try it out and then figure out if you want to return it or not, which sometimes you can't even do that. It's just easier. Watch some people you know that their likes and the things that they enjoy game-wise are similar to what you like. You can find them. You can watch what things that they suggest, like what kind of discovery they do, and you can go off of that. I think that there's a lot of that for the tech world. It's a very saturated market, but for board gaming, I don't think it's quite as saturated. Yeah,
I would agree that I'd like to see a lot more of these kind of discovery-based, kind of seeing how board games are played, or showing people and exposing what these new board games are, or what are these old board games and how you play them, or just kind of showing people what they are and exposing that. Like, the problem that I have with the Yogscast channel is that they'll play these new board games that I haven't heard of, but they don't really do a good job explaining what they are or how they're doing. They're just sort of they're just playing the game.
Yeah,
so it'll be this
they've already explained everything to
They've
themselves.
explained it
and
to
they don't need
themselves,
to do
but
anything
not
else.
to the camera. So you kind of pick up on the game just from how they're playing it, or they'll give a brief description of what they're doing before they start, but they don't go in depth and explain that. Whereas there's like Game Grumps, they also have a short tabletop series. It's a lot more scripted, and there's a lot more production value put into it. And they'll usually do like costumes, and they'll decorate the table and everything. But the way that they do that is they'll spend the first minute or two explaining what the game is. So they'll introduce personalities, they'll introduce the game in like a pre-video that they've already made, and then they'll play the game. And I like that kind of system a lot more. I don't necessarily like the amount of production. They do a lot of acting in that.
Yeah, which you don't really want. You don't want acting.
Yeah.
You want people to give their honest reactions to the board game. Like if
the way that they normally do it is they'll be like in a character. So they'll theme the game. Like for example, one of the games they did was like camel racing game.
Okay.
Board game. Now they themed the entire stage. They all got in costume and they did like a sort of like ancient, sort of like Egypt sort of theme.
Yeah.
So they were all kind of in somewhat of a character of we're all playing and we're in ancient Egypt, and that's kind of the game.
But what we
so they're kind of
really
acting in like a role playing sort of while playing a board game, which I don't like as much. I want to just see them playing a board game.
Well, we want their honest opinions on these things. We want to know how they feel about a game. We if they don't enjoy a game and they're playing it, then I want to know that that there's a certain aspect of this game that they don't enjoy.
Yeah. Now they'll be playing new games, and I enjoy that, but I don't enjoy the fact that they're still acting. They're doing things related to the board game, or they're explaining it. Or
it's like
their feelings on it.
Do you really enjoy this board game, or are you acting that you're enjoying this board game?
Or are you just playing the board game? 'Cause it's more focused on their personalities in those videos, which I'm not worried about the personalities of people playing the board game necessarily when I'm playing the board game. No, it's enjoyable to watch, but it doesn't teach me about what's going on and what they're playing, which I would like to get more of when it comes to those kind of videos.
Yeah, and one thing with the Yogscast that you mentioned it where they kind of jump straight into it. You showed me a video of them playing like a D&D style role-playing game.
Yeah.
But where everybody controlled one character. They didn't explain anything about how anything in that game worked.
No, they didn't.
You had to.
I did research.
I don't know how you figured it out.
So the way that I did is they played a game called Everything is John, which was a game that started on 4chan, I believe. And from there it jumped over and they did a video on it and they played it. Now they jumped straight into the gameplay. They didn't explain any of the process. They explained a tiny bit at the very end of the video, just from, okay, yeah, when we were playing the game, this was my objective, this is your objective, but because the way the game works is you aren't supposed to know what other people are trying to do. So they didn't explain that, though. So they jumped into this game. They're each trying to do their objective, but you as the audience don't know what the objective is. You don't know how this game works or the kind of rules behind that game, so you're just watching them play, and you don't really understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I looked up the rules and the guideline. It's just a simple 2-page document that says how to just a quick, brief explanation of the game. But not having that really keeps you lost as an audience member, and I feel like they need to explain the game when you're watching it, rather.
Yeah, that's part of discovery, is discovering like exactly how the game is played. If you just watch people play it and they might be having fun, but you don't know why they're having fun.
But now that I know how the game works, and now that I've seen the gameplay, knowing what the game is and how that works, now I'm interested to play that game. Like, I would love to play Everyone is John with you and a small group of people. Like, I'd totally be down for that. But now that I know the rules, now if I just watched that video and didn't look into anything afterwards, I'd be like, that's fun. How do I do it though? And I wouldn't know. So it takes that further research or kind of further like input to actually get something out of those videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. All right, that brings us to the end of the show. Go ahead and like us on our new Facebook group and our Facebook page. That's a great way to get live updates on when we post our videos to SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Store, and YouTube. So go ahead and like that and share this podcast with those you think might be interested. And thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.